Hello and welcome to Frost Over the World. Back, as you can see, here in our London studio. Later in the programme, the Irish referendum which could decide the future of Europe, and can war-torn Somalia survive? Plus, movie director Werner Herzog. But we begin with today's hot news, Iran. President Obama has given Iran 2 weeks to prove it doesn't have nuclear weapons after last week's revelation that the country has a second enrichment plant. Earlier, 6 of the world powers met with Iran in crucial talks in Geneva, the first face-to-face dialogue between Iran and the US in 30 years. And by all accounts, there was a surprising level of agreement which emerged. Well, joining me now is a man who knows more about weapons, armaments, and the nuclear world than anyone. Hans Blix, the man who led the hunt for the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, former head of the International Atomic Energy Authority. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you again, Hans. It was an astonishment, really, for people covering yesterday's talks in today's papers. They weren't expecting to use the word progress in any connection with Iran, and in certain areas, key areas, there does seem to have been progress yesterday, doesn't there?
Well, I think that the P6 states were not really asking for very much. They were asking that inspections should start immediately, and after the Iranians had declared that the plant existed at Qum and declared in advance that they were open, I don't think it was very surprising that they went along with inspections. But of course that's not going very far. The real question is there any way in which Iran can be dissuaded from continuing an enrichment program?
And what about the talks of ferrying materials to Russia, ferrying materials back from Russia and so on? Is that good for Iran or for the rest of the world?
I don't think it's very new either. At a very far back, actually, in the discussions with Iran, it was suggested by the Russians that they could provide enriched uranium for Iran and that Iran would not need to have an enrichment program of their own. It would certainly be cheaper to buy enriched uranium from abroad rather than producing it themselves. But the Iranians have said that no, we want to be sure of the assurance of our own supply and we cannot trust anybody. So I don't think this is really a new element. What was new yesterday was, however, that as you said, the meeting came about after 30 years of no diplomatic relations with the United States. For a number of years, the Western side has insisted that Iran must first suspend its enrichment program. Thereafter, the West could sit down. Also, Condoleezza Rice declared that she was ready to sit down, but only when Iran had suspended its program. Now they were sitting down yesterday without Iran having suspended the program, and I think that's good. I think because Mr. Obama cut through the ice when he said we are ready to sit down and talk. Doesn't mean that we agree, and there's no guarantee that they will reach agreement. But at any rate, it's much better format than before. They can sound each other out, and they can feel each other's pulse. And I think they did that yesterday. I think they will continue to do so for a while, at any rate.
And so what is the next point that will need to be tackled in the follow-up meeting?
The next question is the one you've had before, namely, is there any way in which Iran can be dissuaded from continuing with the enrichment program? Because I think there's no way in which they can convince the world that they have no intentions of going for weapons. They might have or they might not have, and if they don't have it today, they could change their mind tomorrow. So I don't think that's any way. The real question is, will they continue with enrichment, and if they do get an industrial scale enrichment capability, they are that much closer to a weapons capability, and that is what has increased the tension. So can they be talked out of that? Or is it that perhaps Ahmadinejad would rather like to have controversy? Maybe he would like threat. Maybe he would like conflict, just as North Korea may want to have conflict, because they can then go to the Iranian people and say, we are threatened, and we have to be tough and stand firm, and you have to support me. However, if that is not the intention, if there is something they desire more than an enrichment program, what is that? And which are the, as it were, the carrots that can be held out of them, and which are the threats that might support that attitude? The West has given an indicator what carrots might be. UK and France and Germany, in talks earlier, have said that, well, we might facilitate investments in Iran. We might also help you to build a civilian nuclear program, not enrichment, which gives bomb, but the civilian nuclear power reactors. And we might help you to get into the World Trade Organization. I mean, are there more such incentives that could be offered? For instance, the United States, that now is a party to the talk, could they say that, well, if we get a deal with you that you stop enrichment, we will establish diplomatic relations, which we haven't had. You will come out from the cold. You will no longer be ostracized. Or could they say to the Iranian that if you do that, if we have a deal, we will also have a non-aggression agreement. We will offer you a commitment that you will not be attacked. You will not need nuclear weapons because you will not be attacked from abroad. So these are possibilities that could be used. They could also broaden the talks and bring in other items, other chips on the table, like cooperation about Afghanistan or about Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, etc. And might even discuss a nuclear weapon-free zone for the Middle East. So there are a great deal of items that could be taken up. And of course, always the risk that Iran could use it to drag out and to a dilatory tactic and meanwhile build more centrifuges.
Well, that's a wonderfully interesting and important panoply there. Is it possible, do we think that we have seen, heard about, found the second and last nuclear enrichment plant in Iran, or might there be a third? Should the inspectors be looking for that?
Well, there's no certainty. I mean, according to my successor, El Baradei, they had the obligation to inform the IAEA about the plans and the decision to go ahead with this plant. And then they have another obligation to inform the IAEA sometime in advance of introducing nuclear material. Now, how close that is, I don't know. But they evidently disregarded the duty to inform the IAEA. And they might have been disregarding their duty to inform the IAEA about some third plant as well. They explain it by saying that this is a backup installation, and we need that because we are threatened by attacks on the Natanz enrichment plant. Well, that might be an explanation, and very well. I mean, they were threatened by Israel, certainly, but it could also be that they want to have a second plant and that they enriched to 5% in the first plant and that they will go on enriching to a higher level at the second plant. We really don't know. And there, as you say, there could be further plants. But the main thing I believe is there something that the rest of the world could offer Iran that they would want more to have than the enrichment program they are now pursuing.
And that is what, exactly? What's the thing they want more?
Well, I mean, if they ask for a seat in the Security Council, I don't think they can get it. That will not be deliverable. If they say that we would like to have equality, disarmament, and disarmament means a whole Middle East free of nuclear weapons. We can do away with enrichment if Israel does away with reprocessing, making more plutonium, and if they do away with their nuclear weapons, and if everybody else in the Middle East does the same. Now, Israel certainly would not go along with that today, but you could ask yourself in some time, would Israel prefer that there be a Middle East without any nuclear weapons and any enrichment, rather than to have two countries, themselves and Iran, and perhaps much later on some other country? So it's not totally far-fetched, but it's certainly not on the table today.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that exegesis, Hans, which we really appreciate. Thank you very much for being with us. Hans Blix. In a moment, the finance minister of one of the world's most troubled countries. Can it survive? Somalia. After this short break.